once again, don't forget to subscribe.
So for today's video, we will talk again the continuation of our discussion about general principle in teaching language arts. So the ELOs, or the intended learning outcomes, at the end of the rating period, students should be able to explain how these principles are used in teaching, their importance with the English teaching area, and promoting literacy skills. Demonstrate example of teaching strategies that promote the 5 macro skills. Differentiate approaches, strategies, methods, and techniques from each other. Give example of approaches, strategies, methodologies, and techniques that can be used in language art.
Approaches, strategies, methodologies, and techniques that can be used in language arts.
Here is the 5 macro skills in language: listening, speaking, reading, writing, and viewing. Background approaches, strategies, methods, and techniques. What are the 4 macro skills? Language teaching covers 4 macro skills needed for communicating: listening, speaking, reading, and writing. Good language teachers plan lessons and sequence of lesson which include a mixture of all macro skills rather than focusing on developing only one macro skill at a time. It categorizes with receptive skills and productive skills. Under oral skills, we have listening and speaking. And for literacy skills, reading and writing. Listening and speaking are oral skills. Reading and writing are literacy skills. Each week, teachers should include some activities which focus on developing students' oral skills. For example, fair and group interaction and games. And some activities which focus on literacy skills. The examples are the following: reading and analyzing text, and then students write their own. Most of the students seldom talk, especially if the question raised by the teacher is in English language. Learners could hardly express themselves both in speaking and writing because they are hesitant and are afraid to commit errors. Communication is a process of sending and receiving message to achieve understanding. One reason people use speech is to learn. The moment a child speaks and asks questions, communication begins. Teacher could not teach if they were not allowed to speak, and the students could not learn if they were not allowed to listen and ask questions. But somehow, listening skills turn out in the most difficult skill. If we will only commit ourselves teachers and practice English in our everyday learning, then our student will able to use it. Then our students will all be used to it. Remember that practice makes it perfect. But later on, viewing the 5th macro skills was established. 2 decades ago, communication arts in English had introduced the 4 macro skills: speaking, reading, writing, and listening. The breakthrough of technology has come with the 5th macro skills both in English and Filipino subject, which is viewing. It is an easy way for the teachers to be guided while discussing, since viewing could help the teacher ease the pain from talking throughout the period. So much so, the students rely much in it or in the viewing, whereas the other macro skills are left behind. We seldom focus on the reading skills. In half of the class is capable of reading without. If half of the class is capable of reading without understanding, and the other half could hardly read. Hence, the participation of the learners in the class discussion will turn out positively or passively. Remedial class among slow learners shown that when the scores are low on the quizzes after the evaluation, there is a poor comprehension. DepEd has long target that no read, no pass. Yet, we still could mention a few who have passed their subject without better comprehension of the lessons and just let the days pass by. Reading makes a fool man. So in time of pandemic, we should use these macro skills in order to learn something by viewing in order to have an effective process of learning. The four skills can also be grouped another way. Listening and reading are receptive skills, since learners need to process and understand language being communicated to them in spoken or written form. Speaking and writing are known as productive skills, since learners need to produce language to communicate their ideas in either speech or text. It is common for language learners to have stronger receptive than productive skills. That is, they can understand more than they can produce. Teachers often link activities for developing students' receptive and productive skills. There have been many approaches, methods, and strategies in English teaching. Approaches deal with general philosophies of teaching. Methods deals with more practical nuts and bolts. Strategies deals with specific actions. Over the years, the objective of many teachers has changed from trying to find an ultimate or best method to identifying compatible approaches and then deciding on strategies for actually doing what needs to be done in the classroom. Now, let us have the situational approach to language teaching. In spite of controversies on language learning process, there is the underlying fact that the main practical objective of teaching a language is to enable the learners to use it. That is, to know to what real-life situation each particular form of the target language corresponds. Acquiring linguistic data is not sufficient because the sense is not a linguistic one, as it has to do with people, objects, and events which are present and moment communication. In the respect, Holiday remarks that when we acquire our primary language, we do so by learning how to behave in situations, not by learning rules about what to say. An examination of some of these methodologies may bring the reader to the conclusion that some appear counterintuitive, not to say downright weird. While teachers should obviously view things with an open mind, a certain level of skepticism is sometimes appropriate. It is likely that over time experience, teachers select whatever elements of these methodologies work for them and to adapt them to their particular teaching styles or student learning styles. It is also seems highly probable that something which works well for one teacher or with one student will not work for another. There is also a question of how seriously we should take methodologies. Anyway, Scott has suggested the idea of discrete methodologies may be an oversimplification, as they all tend to give or to have good and bad elements, or perhaps good and bad practitioners. According to the situational approach and
To ensure that the language that is being taught is realistic, all the words and sentences must grow out of some real situation or imagine real situation. Thus, the meaning of words are tied up with the situation in which they are used. The learners know the meaning of the word or blackboard not because they have looked it up dictionary, but because they have learned the word in situation by hearing commands such as look at the board or look at the blackboard, clean the blackboard, write on the blackboard. This example stresses the association between the word blackboard and the action of looking at it, cleaning it, or writing on it. Even if the classroom environment is limited, the teacher's inventiveness should be put into practice in the presence of a situation picked up from outside the classroom.